Hello, and welcome to NBJ Live on LinkedIn Live. I'm happy to be here. This is a new program for us. And today's episode is Opening Minds to Mood and Mental Health Supplements. And so really happy to be doing this throughout 2024. Opportunity to talk with our internal experts and to share some of this information with you, the audience. Apologies to anyone who tried to join us last week. And if you're here again, thank you so much for giving us a second chance here. We had a little technical difficulty last year, but I'm trusting that everyone's hearing me now. So thank you so much for being here. Also here is NBJ, so we're Nutrition Business Journal, NBJ, you probably know that. Joining me today is our senior editor, Robyn Lawrence, and our market research analyst, Erika Kraft. So welcome, Robyn and Erika. And before I pass it over to Erika to go through some data, just a quick little, who is NBJ? I always like to talk about NBJ as the what, the where, and the why of the dietary supplement industry. What's selling by ingredient category or specific ingredients. Where is it selling? This is the channel dynamics. Where are people buying these things and why are they buying them? And that's when we get into conditions like joint health or heart health or cognition, or like mood and mental health, which is one of the 22 conditions we track at NBJ. And so that's what we're going to spend our time today, is in the where, and specifically in the where around mood and mental health. It's been a strong category since, well, at least through the pandemic. It showed up as what we were calling an adjacent condition. Immune health was the first big thing, and then very quickly we were talking about sleep and mood and mental health, anxiety, stress. So we did a report on it. The condition persists and the category is strong in the supplement industry. So we just did a report on it, and that's why we're talking about it today. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Erika.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Great introduction. Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. Really excited to talk to you guys all about the mood and mental health supplement space. So we have some really good data here that I'll go over relatively quickly, and then we'll get into some discussion afterwards with myself, Bill, and Robyn. So with that, I always like to start off these webinars or any discussion where we're talking about something specific within the supplement industry, explaining big picture, right, of how the whole industry is doing before getting into those specifics. So with that, I want to explain first how to read this chart, just in case if there's any of you out there who haven't seen our charts like this before. So on the left, we have historic sales. So those would be our final numbers. And then in the gray is going to be our forecasted sales. So those would be our estimates, which are not final as of yet. And something a little bit different with this report is we're calling 2023 a P. So it's a preliminary number. It's based on early market predictions and is still an estimate, but it's a little bit more market prediction backed. So with that, that's why it's still gray. With that, so we have early supplement data for you. So typically we publish these numbers in our supplement business report in about May, June, but so we're doing some early estimates, and we think that the supplement industry grew about 3.9% to 63.54 billion in 2023. And as we can see there into the future, we're expecting it to hover around that 5 to 6%. So that is some foundation for us before getting into the specific category we're here to talk about today. So on to sales and growth for mood and mental health. So here we have, and we can see what Bill was mentioning, that spike of growth in 2020 that we saw based on a lot of conversation around the pandemic and how, our stress and anxiety levels, where a lot of people were buying supplements to help them with those symptoms. And so we see that big jump there. And a little bit of that market correction we can see in 2022. So growth was at about almost flat percent in 2022. There were a lot of categories that suffered some growth in that year. And overall, the supplement industry saw, a historic low growth of about 1.9%. But what's interesting is that we're seeing a pretty healthy comeback in this category in 2023. So we're estimating that growth will be around 5.8%. In 2023, and still, you can see it's slightly going down a little bit, but it's not anything that's not going to be considered healthy growth because it's going to be around that 4 or 5%. So definitely a condition to look for and to stay on top of into the future, especially with a lot of, product innovation that's going on and really what's stemming a lot of this growth. So I'll mention it now. And then what I think will be really interesting is when we get into the discussion of what else is stemming this growth. But really, it's just a lot of conversation now is happening in this space, right? A lot of younger generations are having a lot of struggles with this. The younger ones that were in school, whether they were in high school or college, and then they're entering into the world and all of the stress that everyone's dealing with. It's unfortunate, but it's also nice we have a different lens of talking about it, right? So there is a positive here that everyone's talking about it. We're normalizing it. And thankfully, there are some products out there to help with relief. So a little bit on that, we'll talk about it a little bit more. We can see there's going to be about a 4% CAGR from 2023 to 2027, adding about 290 million into that forecasted period. So now that was a little bit of the market sizing. So the next slides that I'm going to be talking about are talking specifically towards the consumer survey information that we did for this report. So we did 2 different surveys. So both of them were targeting those who said they experience, mood or mental health symptoms. So stress, anxiety, insomnia, mood, hormonal imbalance, mood related symptoms. So one of the surveys was just those who have symptoms. Another survey was those specifically who are taking supplements to help support them. And so for the first 3 slides, it's just these general consumers who are having those symptoms. So with that, we asked respondents what their top concerns were and found that 75% said that they're struggling with stress, followed by 67% who said anxiety, and 51% who said insomnia. So these are all, a lot of people these days, when you ask them how they're doing or ask if they're stressed, it's more common, unfortunately. But what I thought was really interesting was that 51% for insomnia. It's like when you're stressed and you have so much going on, you're likely lacking in the sleep department. And so you're a lot more tired. And so I think that a future prediction we could see here is that a merging of 2 of these conditions or products that are, going after both mood and mental health and insomnia. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then another one here. So these are just how satisfied consumers are with their health as it relates to the following categories. So, we asked generally, how is your sleep health? How is your gut health, your brain health, and then your mood and stress related health? And what we found was that sleep health and that mood and stress, of course, but that sleep health was the highest for consumer dissatisfaction. So more than gut and brain health. So what we were trying to get at here was what are some other conditions, that brands could be also formulating for that, these mood and mental health consumers would be interested in. And it's looking like it's that sleep category. And here we just ask, how are you treating your symptoms or concerns? So what's interesting is that lifestyle, of course, came up first. So about half are doing diet, exercise, therapy, massages, their own personal antidote for helping those symptoms. But then 44% said that they take dietary supplements. So that's a really encouraging number. I'd love to ask this question again in a year and see where we're at, see if there's going to be more people taking it. But then you see, prescription pharmaceuticals is right underneath of it. So those who have these symptoms, there's more of them who say they take dietary supplements than prescription pharmaceuticals. So I thought that was interesting. And then last slide I want to end on, we here at NBJ love this slide because it's just so encouraging. And so I think it's a positive one to end on. So this was from the survey where it was consumers who take those mood and mental health supplements for their symptoms or concerns. So we asked, are you noticing a difference when you're taking these supplements? And 70% said yes, they're noticing a positive and effective difference. Only 11% say they don't notice anything. And there's still almost 20% who are a little unsure, right? Still left to be, swayed one way or the other. But that 70% is just so staggering to me. That's why I think we at NBJ think that this category is growing the way that it is because consumers are actually finding relief from these supplements. You know, when you take an immunity supplement, you don't always feel, or vitamin C, you don't always say, wow, I have such a great immune boost. Or when you're taking, you know, any other supplement where you can't tell, right? So like collagen, you can tell your hair, skin, and nails are growing. And so that's what I think that this category can lean on here is really that noticing a positive difference. And I think that it can bring a lot of change to these consumers who really are seeking it. So that is all I have from a data perspective. I would love to get Bill and Robyn back in here. And this is just the cover for our report. I like to put it in here just because I think they did a really great job with the picture and the design. It's very pretty. But anyway, Bill, I will give it back to you and we can get talking.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Erika. Again, our market research analyst, Erika Kraft. I want to encourage people to ask us questions. So type your question, it'll get over to me, and we'll see how many we can hit here in the next 19 minutes. Great stuff there, Erika. It's really, you know, that data says a lot. I'd like to hear your response to some of that, Robyn. Particularly that last point about the perceived efficacy of these supplements. I think that's an important thing. Erika touched on it a lot, and so perhaps said everything that needs to be said. But I'm wondering if you have anything to add there.
She really did do a great job of encapsulating what we've all been talking about when we saw that number. Which, you know, again, it's just the whole thing of, you know, you take a supplement for joint health and you know it works, and if it stops working, you know, if it's not working, you stop taking the supplement. So I think just this is such a tough mood, and mental health it's a very subjective type of, you know, to efficacy. And so I think the fact that people are finding it working is kind of amazing, as we all did. 61% of those people say that they see immediate improvement. So it's not even something that they have to, you know, oh, well, I'll wait and see. It's like immediately they are finding relief from their stress or their sleep problems or whatever. So that's also very encouraging. The other point within this data that I think is really encouraging is that the highest perceived efficacy was among Gen Zs, who, as I think we'll end up talking about throughout this, is Gen Zs are really, really key demographic for mood and mental health supplements in so many ways. And so I think, you know, the fact that they are 78% of them and 76% of millennials say that they're working really just gives some pretty huge runway to this entire category. That's really
interesting. I think you really drilled into something crucial here too, is the word immediate. It seems to me like a multivitamin, maybe, but general health, we call general health a condition. So general health might be the least perceived, you know, the most faith-based supplementation, right? We take it because it seems like a good idea. Presumably immune health is, I don't know, we might all have different opinions about that. Joint health, hopefully you notice something, but you have to be patient. And so I think it's really interesting. One of the really unique things about this category is that immediacy. And I think and the related categories too, probably sleep. You really want a pretty immediate benefit from those things. Yeah. So lots in there. You touched on Gen Z. Let's talk about them a little bit more. One of the things that came up in the survey was how many we asked people if they're seeking, I don't know how we asked it, but professional help. Are you in counseling of some sort or therapy? And Gen Z outshone all of the other generations. Is that right?
That's correct. 38%, far more than many of the other generations, said that they are seeking professional help for their mood and mental health issues. And I think that's just there's you know, the title of our webinar here, but you know, really there's much more open-mindedness about not only, you know, admitting that they're going through things, but also being willing to look for help. So, you know, we also found that 71% of Gen Z said that they were experiencing mood and mental health issues, which is also a huge percentage. And at first it was like, oh man, you know, that's kind of a scathing indication on, you know, what's how the world is really working out for young people. But then when you look at it a little bit deeper, you realize, well, you know, maybe it's just that they're willing to admit it. Whereas with older cohorts, it's kind of, there's still some stigma involved, and it's something we don't talk about. And so I think in a lot of ways, that's kind of, that's promising. And so they're more in touch with their mental and emotional well-being than other cohorts are. And they're willing to seek out things like supplements. So again, as I said, you know, before, so much runway there. And then, you know, I just wrote an article on this, so I just have to throw it in, but that the next generation after Gen Z, Gen Alpha, by the time you get to Gen Alphas, those are the kids who were born starting in 2010, the mental health conversation has been completely normalized, and there is no stigma to it. They are, you know, mood tracking, they're managing their moods already at age 10. And so I just think that's it shows a lot of just opportunity for growth within this category.
Right. Yeah. I thought you said you read an article about it, but you wrote an article about
I wrote
it.
one, yes, for
A great
Nutrition
article
Business Journal. Yeah,
for
thanks.
NBJ a couple of issues back. That was great. So it's interesting. There's kind of a good news, bad news thing throughout this. It's that we're struggling with stress and anxiety and sleeplessness is good news for the industry. It's not necessarily good news for society, but I like your spin on it too. It's maybe just that we're admitting it now, and we're talking about it. And the younger generations, which could be, we could take a pretty grim look at that and think, oh my goodness, they're a mess. What does that foretell? But hopefully not. Hopefully it's not that narrow. And it's really, like you said, it's just a willingness to talk about it. Because as we defined these issues, you saw the list a few minutes ago, it included stress and anxiety. Well, I mean, raise your hand, right? It's a pretty broad definition. Erika, I'm curious about that, because I know for the survey, we screened out people who didn't raise their hand, essentially. How many people so we reach out to a general population, several thousand people, and ask if you're experiencing these things. How many people said yes to that, and how many people said no, percentage-wise?
Great question. Yeah, so we surveyed, we put out a screener essentially to grab and target a certain audience that we want to go after. And so when we screened originally 10,000 people, about 65% said that they're experiencing either always, sometimes, or often any one of those symptoms. So we didn't include, there was a never and rarely, and we didn't include those people. So we're capturing those who are really experiencing it to some degree. That's not necessarily rarely, but enough to to notice, you know. So that's why I think that this data is really rich, is because we're capturing those who have these symptoms, right? We're getting general attitudes and how they're feeling, but then we're also capturing those consumers who are taking supplements. And so I think that there's value in that for brands who are already, you know, using these supplements and creating them. You know, what do they need to be doing for those current consumers, but how can you capture new consumers as well? So I think this report does a really great job at capturing both.
And let's see if I got this right. I think you said 44% are taking supplements for these symptoms.
Correct.
They're not just taking supplements. And that was from the survey that was the general population. So not necessarily supplement users, but almost half of them are taking supplements for mood and mental health. That's shocking, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's just back to that. People they're noticing a difference. And I think that that's the key here, is that's where a lot of this growth is coming from. And so I would love, I mean, throughout even this year and into next year, to see like where it's growing from that consumer interest. I think that'll be really interesting as well.
Yeah. Erika talked a little bit about overlapping conditions, and we went into it a bit in the report, even microbiome and gut health, I think. Robyn, do you see any opportunities for the industry in those intersections of stress and sleep, stress and gut health, stress and brain health, or others?
I think in all of them. I think the overarching thing that we found over and over again is just that people are stressing more and sleeping less, which makes a lot of sense. And when you're stressed, you don't sleep. So with 2/3 of people saying that stress was a primary concern, and about half of them saying that they had trouble sleeping, I think the immediate opportunity right here is just something that, to combine the two, right, and come out with supplements that are addressing stress and sleep. And I think for any of these, we asked them if you could have an additional condition to your mood and mental health supplements that what they would also address, whether you're taking it for microbiome, for gut, or for stress, or for depression, whatever, that people want sleep. So I think that the overall easy answer here is, whatever it is you're putting out your supplement for, just add sleep, because sleep is our issue. And no matter what, it's gonna be a huge value add, and it's what people need and want.
And it becomes so circular, right? I think you said when we're stressed, we don't sleep. If we don't sleep, we aren't as resourced.
You get more stressed, right?
Get more stressed, right? And it's just on and on.
It does.
Let's please help me out here, audience. Let's get some other questions, so I don't have to think of all of them. I'd love to see some questions and make sure we're addressing what you're looking for. Let's talk a little bit about ingredients. Maybe, I'd love to hear from you, Robyn, about what you're seeing, but let's start with what the data says. According to NBJ, what are the top ingredients in this category, Erika?
Yeah, so I'll start off with top 2 in terms of growth percentages and what's growing the fastest, I guess I would say. And then I'll leave it to Robyn. I think she has some other really great points that she makes. So I'll leave some ingredients to her. But I think from a growth perspective, we're seeing ashwagandha, of course, is growing quite a bit in this category. I mean, that's essentially what the ingredient is really well known for. What it works for is stress and relaxation. So, we're going to see a lot of growth in that category. But also we're seeing mushrooms pop up a lot here. And it's so interesting to see, the different areas that mushrooms are in. I mean, I feel like, historically it's mostly cold, flu, and immunity, but now we're seeing a lot in brain health. And I think we're seeing a lot in this category as well. And so between those 2 ingredients, I think those are, ashwagandha is more of like a staple, and then mushrooms is more of that trending new fun thing that, consumers are like, ooh, mushrooms, I've heard those are good for me, I want to try that out. So I think those 2, but Robyn, I'm curious to hear some of your points on ingredients. Do you think?
One of the things I think is kind of fascinating, and we see this across a lot of categories, but there are kind of your darling, ingredients like ashwagandha and mushrooms, and those are kind of more hip and interesting. But when we did the consumer survey, what we found were the most popular among consumers were the boring old B vitamins and vitamin D3 and magnesium, which have been around forever. They're kind of the stalwarts, but they remain still, despite all the more glamorous things that come along, really the kind of the workhorse of this category. Melatonin continues to rule sleep, which I think is really interesting, especially given that there's been some controversy and some negative headlines, but that hasn't really, it's still far more popular than, say, valerian. So I think that was a really something that stood out to me. I think probiotics are also key and continue to grow and continue to be a crucial part of this. More than half of the consumers said they're seeking out mood and mental health supplements that contain probiotics and prebiotics and symbiotics. So they're also looking to support gut health. And I think as more and more people understand the gut health, microbiome, mood connection, that's going to even just continue to grow. So that's really an important one. And then, I think the other one that I have to bring up, because everybody's like, oh, CBD, it's so over. And, it's so done. And it had that, it had that huge spike and then such a hard fall. But, and it is continuing to fall from this really high plateau of over $1 billion in 2019, but it's still it's still an ingredient. It's still a contender. It's still well over twice as many sales in dollars as than mushrooms. So, and more than a quarter of the supplement users that we surveyed said, still said that they're interested in it. So, it's falling, but it's not dead. So I just think that that's one to again, just kind of keep an eye and see what happens with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, great points. Thanks, Robyn. We do have an audience question from Jungi at Serial Pharma. The question is, do we see a trend in audience-specific formulations? What comes to mind for me there is generations. But Jungi specifically asks, like stress relief products specifically tailored to women. Have either of you seen such products? We recently did a women's health report either, back-to-back women's health report and a mood and mental health report.
And I think that it's definitely starting to happen for women. We're also seeing teen, a lot of supplements for children's and teens mood. But I think for women especially, it's just, as overall, the industry starts to realize that they have this huge untapped audience in women, that they're starting to create the products to meet their needs. And women are twice as likely as men to suffer from things like depression and anxiety. And they're also, about half of them said in our survey that they believe that supplements can relieve their symptoms, and 37% of them are undecided. So again, that 37%, if you could pull those people over, that's, almost 90% who believe that supplements could help with these things. So again, I think huge untapped markets that are starting to get delivered to.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'll add to that. Actually, mood and mental health is not maybe even in the top 5 fastest growing conditions, nor is women's health. But we're really highlighting them a lot because, first of all, women's health is split across many conditions. Menopause, which even that is spreading out into perimenopause and menopause formulas, and like you said about children's health, I think there's a lot of opportunity in there if you look beyond just the raw growth number for these categories. Another question from the audience. Thank you, audience. We've got a question from Song Gao at Quality Phytochemicals. In our research, how do you think of crocin and saffron in this category? And the carotenoid crocin is relatively new, so new that I don't know much about it. But saffron, we've sure been hearing a lot about it. Any comments?
Yeah. I'll take a stab at that one first. So we at NBJ don't track saffron as an ingredient yet. And then the first ingredient, I feel like I'm going to mess up the name, but crocin. Yeah. So
if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Okay. We don't track that one either, but I do know of the saffron ingredient, of course, within this condition. And I think when Robyn and I were doing our research for this report, and it is another staple within this category. It's in so many ingredients. And so it would be interesting to see, though, the progression of that. Like, it's known really well in this category, and it is a staple, and it's a big ingredient, but how does that transition now into the future when consumers might not necessarily know about that? And it brings up this bigger discussion of, like, are consumers paying attention to the ingredient label and what these ingredients are, or are they focused on what the claim is saying on the package, right? So mood and mental health, or relieve stress, or help with relaxation, improve mood, whatever that wording ends up being. I think, me personally, that's what's grabbing people's attention. We've done surveys before on, do you do research on your supplements before you buy them? A lot of people tend to say yes, but we don't get into, specifics on what that research looks like. But I would dare to say that I'm not sure a lot of people are really going that far in depth on ingredients. And so I think they're taking something and then they're like, oh yeah, generally I'll be looking at it, but they might not necessarily know that saffron does, specifically for them, compared to, valerian or another ashwagandha, for example. So I think that's interesting. I think it's popular. I think it's well known, but it'll be interesting to see new formulations and new product innovations, whether they use that or something else.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. Are people going for condition or benefit, or are they going for the ingredients? And I've answered that question each of those ways within the last week. It's Robyn, what do you think as our sort of closing us out here?
I think that people are looking for. I don't have the data to back either, so I don't know. I mean, I think we're all kind of taking a stab here, and this is something we need to keep paying attention to. But I do think that people really they want to know. I mean, I just learned about saffron 6 months ago because I was writing an article on women and mood. So I think that if I, as a person who's kind of reporting on the industry, I'm just hearing about it, it's probably not made its way really deeply past the formulators to the thing. But a lot of the things that they're buying that are for mood and mental health are saying, are including that ingredient. So I think you're probably right, Erika. I think it's people are allowing the industry to do the research for them into individual ingredients.
Right. Yeah. And I think in the end, it's a both and. It's it's first, but then the ingredient gets famous, like ashwagandha, and then it becomes the ingredient. Perhaps because they both really feel true to me. Well, we're at time. Oh,
I was just going to say things like, Ayurvedic. People don't understand what Ayurvedic is, but they know ashwagandha, which is an Ayurvedic herb, and they know turmeric, which is so I think that it's the ingredients getting famous one at a time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is. Well, great. Thank you so much. Thanks to the audience. We're a minute over, so we'll wrap it here. But thanks so much for joining us for our first NBJ Live, our first successful NBJ Live, and opening minds to mood and mental health supplements, or promoting the mood and mental health report that we just released. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Robyn. Thank you, Erika. Cheers.
Thanks.